How often people already know exactly what to do and still don't do it? Most people already know how to lose weight. Most people already know they should sleep more. Most people already know they spend too much time on their phones. Most people already know they should save money. Most people already know they should have that conversation they've been avoiding. And most people already know what one thing they need to do next. So information doesn't seem to be the problem. And that's what confused me for years. Because if knowledge was enough, wouldn't most of us already have the life we want? But that's clearly not how life works. We understand, and yet we stay where we are. So at some point, I started asking a different question. Maybe the real question isn't what should I do? Maybe the real question is, if I already know what to do, why I'm still not doing it? 4 years ago, I moved to the United States. One of the reasons I moved was because I wanted to start speaking to an English-speaking audience. The strange thing is, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Open the phone, record the video, post it. But for 4 years, I didn't do it. Most people already have an answer to this question. They think their problem is discipline or motivation or consistency. Maybe you've heard something like this before. If you really wanted it, you would do it. Successful people just take action. Stop making excuses, just do it. And honestly, part of me used to believe that too. Because sometimes it looks true. You see someone going to the gym every day, building a business, writing a book, creating content, and you think, they must have something I don't have. More discipline, more willpower, more motivation. So when we don't move, we usually blame ourselves. We think, maybe I'm lazy, maybe I'm weak, maybe I just don't want it badly enough. But over the years, I started noticing something strange. Some of the smartest people I knew were stuck. Some of the most capable people I knew were stuck. Some people understood their problem perfectly and still couldn't change it. And that's when I started wondering, what if the problem isn't as simple as motivation? What if something else is happening? It took me years to understand what was happening beneath the surface. Eventually, I found a simple framework that helped me make sense of it. And by the end of this video, you'll be able to use it to look at your own life differently. Over the years, I've noticed something interesting, and I kept seeing it in very different people. But the pattern was often the same. A person would tell me what they wanted. They wanted a better relationship, a healthier body, more money, a new career, more confidence, more freedom. And when we talked about what they could do next, the answer was usually obvious. They already knew. And yet, nothing was moving. Then I started paying attention to something else. Not what people wanted, but what happened inside them when they thought about taking action. And that's where things got interesting. Because very often there wasn't just one voice. One part of them wanted to move forward and another part didn't. One part wanted change, another part wanted safety. And the more I watched this happen, the less I believed that the problem was laziness. It felt like something deeper, almost like different parts of the same person wanted different things. This idea reminded me of Marvin Minsky's book, The Society of Mind. He suggested that what we call a mind may actually be made up of many different processes working together, rather than a single unified voice. So I started paying attention to something else, not only to what people said they wanted, but to what happened inside them, especially in the first few seconds. Let's say someone talks about money or career or relationships or health. I would ask them to think about that area of life, and then I would watch. Sometimes, before a person even says a word, something already happens. An image appears, feeling appears, a reaction appears, and that's when I started realizing something. The process does not begin with thoughts. Thoughts come later. Eventually, I started seeing the same sequence again and again: image, emotion, thoughts, actions, result. I often think in visual models and diagrams. If you'd like to keep this model and visual cards from this video for your own reflection, I've collected them on Pinterest. You'll find the link in the description. First, there is a subconscious image. It can be an image of money, an image of career, your new career, an image of relationship, an image of your body, an image of success, an image of the future. Something appears inside before we explain anything. And then this image creates an emotion, maybe fear, maybe shame, maybe pressure, maybe excitement. Then the emotion creates thoughts. The mind starts explaining. It starts making stories. It starts giving reasons. I'm not ready. This is not the right time. I need to prepare more. I don't know enough. What if it doesn't work? What if people judge me? One experiment, I love it so much, by neuroscience Michael Gazzaniga, fascinated me for years. In a split brain patient, one hemisphere saw a chicken claw, the other saw a snowy landscape. The patient then chose two matching pictures: a chicken for the claw and a snow shovel for the snow scene. But when asked why he chose the shovel, he didn't say, "Because I saw snow." He didn't know it. Instead, he immediately created a story. The shovel is for cleaning the chicken coop. In other words, the explanation came after the choice. And that's one reason I became so interested in what happens before our conscious explanations. And then these thoughts affect actions or inaction. We postpone, we overthink, we wait, we scroll, we distract ourselves, and then we get a result. The same result as before. No movement, no change, no real step. And from the outside, it looks like the person just didn't take action. But that's not where the process started. It started much earlier with the image. So for me, the pattern became very simple. Subconscious image, then emotion, then thoughts, then actions, and then result. And once you see this pattern, many things start to make sense, because people don't always act based on what they know. They often act based on what feels true inside. Jeff Hawkins writes about the brain as a prediction system. In many ways, what feels true to us can be more powerful than what we consciously know. A person may say, I want more money. But if the image of money, subconscious image, feels heavy or dirty or dangerous or impossible, then the body will not move toward it easily. A person may say, I want a relationship. But if the image of relationship feels like pain or control or rejection or losing yourself, then of course something inside will resist. A person may say, I want to be visible. But if visibility feels like danger, like judgment, like being exposed, then recording one video can feel enormous, even if technically it is simple. Open the phone, press record, speak. That is not hard, but inside it may feel like crossing a border. And this is why advice often doesn't not work, because advice speaks to the mind, but the pattern starts deeper, before the thought, before the plan, before the excuse. There is already an image, and that image is already creating a feeling, and that feeling is already shaping the next thought, and this thought is already shaping the next action. So when we only ask, what should I do, we might miss the real place where the pattern begins. A better question might be, what appears inside when I think about this? What image appears? What feeling comes with it? What does this part of my life feel like from the inside? Because if we don't see the image, we keep trying to change only the action. But the action is not the beginning. The action is almost the end of the chain. And I know this pattern so well because I've seen it in my own life. Because every time I thought about making video in English, something happened inside me. One of the reasons I moved here was simple. I wanted to start speaking to an English-speaking audience. I had already spent many years working with people. I had built a large community in my native language. I had ideas, I had experience, I had something I wanted to share. And the funny thing is, I knew exactly what to do. The plan wasn't complicated. Open the phone, record a video, it's easy. Post it. That's it. Simple. But for 4 years, I didn't do it. And for a long time, I kept explaining it to myself. My English isn't good enough. I need more time. I already have too much on my plate. I need a better plan. I need to prepare more. And some of those things were true, but they weren't the real reason. The real reason was harder to see, because every time I thought about making videos in English, something happened inside me. Not a thought, a feeling. And behind that feeling, an image. An image of starting from zero. An image of being a beginner again. An image of knowing what would happen. And that image created emotion, fear, doubt, pressure. Then came the thoughts. What if nobody watches? What if people don't understand me? What if my English really isn't good enough? What if I disappoint myself? And those thoughts affected my actions, or more accurately, my lack of action. I waited, I prepared, I thought about it, I planned, I imagined, but I didn't start. And this is why that pattern became so real for me. Because from the outside, it looked like I wasn't taking action, but underneath, a whole chain was already running. Image, emotion, thoughts, actions, result. The result was simple. 4 years passed, and I still hadn't started. And at some point, I had to be honest with myself. The problem wasn't English. The problem wasn't time. The problem wasn't strategy, because if those were the real problems, I could have solved them. The real problem was something else. I was protecting something. And for a long time, I couldn't see it. But once I saw it, everything started making sense. You see, before moving to the United States, I already knew who I was. I had an audience, I had an experience, I knew what if I was doing, and then suddenly I found myself in a completely different situation. A different country, a different language, a different audience, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't know what would happen. That's what scared me. Not failure, uncertainty, not criticism, reality. Because as long as I wasn't making videos, I didn't have to find out what was true. Still imagine success. I could still imagine that people would understand me. I could still imagine that everything would work. But the moment I pressed record, I would have to face reality, and reality might be different from the story in my head. I think this is something many people experience. Sometimes we think we are protecting ourselves from failure, but often we are protecting ourselves from reality. As long as we don't start, nothing can disappoint us. Nothing can challenge us. Nothing can prove us wrong, but nothing can move forward either. And that was the insight. The problem was never that I didn't know what to do. I knew exactly what to do. Some part of me believed it was safer not to find out what would happen. And once I saw that, I stopped fighting myself. Because suddenly, my resistance made sense. It wasn't trying to destroy me. It was trying to protect me. The problem was simply that the protection had become more expensive than the risk. The cost of staying where I was had become bigger than the cost of beginning. And maybe you've experienced something similar. There is an area of your life where you already know what to do. You know the next step. You've known it for months, maybe for years, and yet something keeps stopping you. Maybe it's your health, maybe it's money, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's your work, maybe it's something you've wanted to create for a very long time. And if that's true, I don't think you are unusual. In fact, I think this is one of the most common human experiences, because most people are not struggling with information. Most people are struggling with an inner conflict they don't fully see. Part of them wants to move forward. Part of them wants to stay safe. Part of them wants change. Part of them wants certainty. And when we don't understand that conflict, we usually blame ourselves. We call ourselves lazy, undisciplined, unmotivated. But what if that's not what's happening? What if the reason that part of you is holding on? What if it is trying to protect something, not because it's bad, not because it's weak, but because at some point it learned that staying where you are feels safer than moving into the unknown. And if you are ever felt stuck in that way, you are definitely not the only one. So before we finish, I'd like to invite you to try something. Think about one area of your life where you feel stuck. Not a small thing, something important. Maybe it's money, maybe it's your career, maybe it's a relationship, maybe it's your health, maybe it's something you've wanted for a very long time. Now take that area of your life and say it quietly to yourself. My money, my relationship, my career. And just notice what happens. Don't analyze it. Don't try to change it. Just notice what appears, what image comes up, what feeling comes with it. Because that image may be telling you something. It may be showing you where the patterns begins. Not at the level of action, but much earlier. And maybe the goal isn't to force yourself to take action. Maybe the first step is simply to see clearly, to see what is already there, to see what part of you is trying to help, to see what part of you is trying to protect you. Because once we can see the pattern, we are no longer fighting a shadow. We are looking at something real. And from there, change becomes possible. Not because we found the perfect strategy, not because we suddenly became disciplined, but because we finally understand what has been happening inside us all along. So maybe the question isn't what should I do? Maybe the question is what appears inside me when I think about the thing I want most, and what might that image be trying to tell me. Thank you for being here, and thank you for thinking about these questions with me.